A man in a suit.
A necessary precaution.
He didn't really have a choice.
I think I'm now called upon to put right and put down.
Why is it always a man in a suit? Personification of the AI overlord? Man in a suit. Genetically engineered killing machine? Man in a suit. Eldritch demon waiting in the trees? Man in a suit. It doesn't even have to be a metaphor. Sometimes it literally just is.
That one day, every person in this nation will control their own destiny.
A man in a suit.
Don't fuck with this, Senator!
Look, I've seen my share of villains in my time. I've seen the extremes of what malevolence can look like. I've seen all sorts of abominations, atrocities, ancient beasts, and man-made horrors beyond all comprehension. I've seen the faces of some of the oldest, most archetypal villains in the human imagination. But by sheer volume alone, very few can compete with the near limitless versatility of a man in a suit. What am I missing here? When I look at this, I just see a bureaucrat, someone you might see at the DMV, an insurance agent. I don't know, maybe I'm just out of the loop or something. It's hard to grasp. Out of all the ways you could personify evil, why is this the one humans keep coming back to? How can you all possibly be so unnerved by... Okay, really quick, I just want to share something with you that I'm really proud of. This is how we here at Foundry imagine the infamous King in Yellow to look. This is an actual original piece of art created by our very own artist, Owen Norton. The reason I want to show it to you here is because I think it also says something about the absurdity of art. See the gilded antlers, the floating crown, the flowing tasseled robes, skeletons crowded within. There's just something so resonant about this figure and about how artists are so drawn to it. We just had to try and capture that. And you could capture it too. We have prints available at thetalefoundry.com/store. They're only $20 each, and every one you buy helps us make these videos. Again, just visit thetalefoundry.com/store to get yours. I can't promise you won't go mad looking at it. It's just a risk you'll have to take. Now, back to the video.
Gordon Freeman in the flesh.
The G-Man, the epitome of all men in suits, a literal cosmic bureaucrat. The trope didn't start with him, but it may as well have. With only about 15 minutes of dialogue across 10 games, this character is still somehow just as resonant 30 years later. This scene, at the very end of the game, is the first time he speaks in the series. It's also the first time you really get to see him, unless you've been paying close attention. It might not be immediately obvious, but he is everywhere. The G-Man is a constant presence throughout all of Half-Life 1, a tall order in a game with an environment that is, to put it mildly, occupationally unsafe. The G-Man follows you through zombie-laden corridors, explosive reactor cores, tunnels with giant flame-throwing ogres. He seems strangely indifferent to the ongoing apocalypse, which to me suggests his role in the story is much more active than it appears. But really, that's all it does. Suggest. The G-Man is an inherently mysterious figure. We only know what we can piece together by observing him. For instance, he seems to have the ability to teleport, but he can't, or maybe won't, do so all the time. At the very beginning of the game, he can be seen riding a tram, just like us. We know he has something to do with the disaster that kicks off the story because he provided the defective crystal that caused it to happen in the first place, but we don't know what role he had or how it served his interests. We know he can control people and possibly even time and space itself because he does so at the end of each game, but we also know that his powers are limited because he still seems to need humans to do his bidding.
You've done so well, in fact, that I've received some interesting offers for your services.
On paper, you'd think this would all make the G-Man less intimidating. It appears he's not actually all-powerful. He's reliant on flesh and blood humans. He can be captured by his enemies. His power can even be resisted by the right kind of alien. But the fact that there is a method to the madness really just makes you aware that you're never allowed to know what it is. There must be a reason he needs the player to serve as his lifelong attack dog, shuttling them from conflict to conflict as part of a long intergalactic murder spree. But we don't know why.
It seems as if you only just arrived.
There must be a reason he rescued certain characters from the events of the first game and left others to perish. But we don't know why. There must be a reason he gave Black Mesa the defective sample that triggered the alien invasion and created the central conflict of the entire series in the first place.
When I plucked her from Black Mesa, I acted in the face of objections that she was a mere child and of no practical use to anyone.
At every juncture, G-Man is telling us just enough for us to know that there's a club, and we're not in it. Decisions are being made about your life, about everyone's lives, that we simply are not privy to. There is a system, there is a strategy, there is a massive civilization-scale chess game being played, but the G-Man is here to remind us constantly that we are not the players of it. That would already be pretty unnerving, but it gets worse. As you play the game, it becomes clear that not even the G-Man himself is one of the players.
That's why I'm here, Mr. Freeman. I have recommended your services to my employers.
The G-Man is, ultimately, despite his seemingly effortless ability to manipulate people, governments, space, and even time itself, just a man in a suit. A stooge doing the bidding of a power far greater than himself, which, when you frame it that way, okay, yeah, I can see why this makes you nervous. I suppose the thing that's really scary about these characters isn't the power that you see them wield. It's the power you can't see. The power that they are subordinate to. The power they represent. If the G-Man is already mystifying, if he's already strange and difficult to comprehend, and he's supposed to represent an even greater power, how can we hope to see the edges of that power? How do we know that there are edges to it at all? Joseph K. is under arrest. The news is delivered to him by two policemen on a quiet weekday morning. K doesn't know why he's being arrested. Strangely, the policemen don't either. Not only do they not know, they scold K for even asking. After all, by their own admission, they, quote, hardly know one end of an ID card from another. They're just here to do their job. Soon after, he's brought to their supervisor, who also knows nothing. Neither do the administrators at the court. Neither do the judges. Neither does any person K interacts with throughout the trial. Franz Kafka's famous critique of bureaucracy. As K journeys through the trial for his unspecified crime, he ricochets between seemingly endless layers of administrative authority, each more absurd and detached than the last. He is told to report for a court hearing without being told what time he's meant to show up. The court's offices are in a basement with air so oppressive he can barely breathe down there. He's told it is absolutely necessary to seek the services of a lawyer, but also that legal defense is technically illegal under the rules of the court. The bureaucrats of each layer vary in background and affect, from lawyers to judges, pencil pushers, cops, and so on. None of them, on their own, are quite as remarkable as the G-Man. They do not teleport, shatter the boundaries of time and space, or trigger alien invasions. But that's not really a fair comparison to make, because the G-Man is not a person. He's an incarnation, a depiction of process, of a system. The G-Man is the court itself, and every solitary bureaucrat who makes it up. When you listen to what all these functionaries say, you start to notice something. A pattern. A weird sort of performative disempowerment. The officers that arrest K insist that they're just following orders from their superiors. The G-Man almost always blames his actions on his employers, as he calls them, even as he imprisons people and presses them into service. He almost never intervenes directly in the plot. The higher-ups won't allow him to.
They authorize me to nudge things in a particular direction from time to time.
The trial is not some kind of natural disaster. It's a process that exists and continues to exist because people keep showing up to work every day and willing it into existence. Despite their claims, the officers that arrest Kay are doing more than just their jobs. They're perpetuating the court's power and its injustices, allowing it to keep running. The events of Half-Life wouldn't even have happened if the G-Man had not specifically intervened to make them happen. Despite being on some kind of cosmic leash for superiors beyond our comprehension, he still does things. He makes choices. Just as he needs the player and other characters, the power he serves needs him. And he complies. There seems to be something symbiotic happening here. It's like these men in suits lean on the systems they serve, not just for power, but to deflect their guilt. They cooperate with the system while denying responsibility for their own actions within it. Which, by the same token, makes them weirdly honest. The court is so labyrinthine, it's impossible to completely comprehend. Every court functionary Kay speaks to is only dimly aware of the size and scope of the entire system. Each one feels individually powerless to challenge it themselves. And for his part, G-Man's employers, whoever they are, clearly possess the power to discipline and control him. He frequently alludes to the restrictions placed upon him by the people he is forced to serve. Cynically or not, he's constantly reminding us that he's the one protecting us from the entirety of their wrath. This aspect of the character strikes me as almost tragic, actually. For all the power the suit vests them with, it's also something of a straitjacket. I suppose that's not surprising. When a system becomes so complex that it outgrows human interests entirely, what becomes of the humans working that system? The thing that Joseph K. feels is most outrageous about his arrest is that he is, as he puts it, a free man in a free country. For a long time, he thought, everywhere was at peace. All laws were decent and were upheld. I was always inclined to take life as lightly as I could, to cross bridges when I came to them, pay no heed for the future, even when everything seemed under threat. But here, that did not seem like the right thing to do.
I know my rights.
This might be the reason Kay goes along with his trial until the very end, even though he's never told what the crime is. If he can only talk to the right person, he believes, surely they will recognize that there's been some mistake.
I'm a tourist.
And every person Kay seeks advice from about the trial, his family, his lawyers, and of course, court officials themselves, insist over and over again that it's easier to cooperate. It's a court, after all. There are procedures, doctrines, laws. These institutions are ultimately there to serve you, right? Well, take a step back and think about what all of this is. The rule of law is meant to prevent arbitrary violence, right? As I understand it, the courts exist as an alternative to the duel. So most humans implicitly accept those ideas, even if they have criticisms of their own society's legal systems. Because, you don't want to live in Mad Max, which is reasonable. But the trial shows what can happen when people blindly accept the rule of law. The story is a little hyperbolic, but only a little. As Kay's trial progresses and the fiction of justice shrinks ever thinner, he does not abandon that blind acceptance until the very end. That is, until men have come to his home to take him to his execution. At the end of Half-Life 1, G-Man offers the player a choice between working for him and being abandoned to die on an alien planet. Of course, there is no real choice here. You are not being employed, you're being drafted. But it is nonetheless important to G-Man that he makes you feel like you have a choice at all. More than anything else, the man in the suit preys on people's desire for control. The real power the G-Man has isn't teleporting or mind control or even the ability to manipulate time and space. It's the ability to create the illusion of choice.
I will take the liberty of choosing for you.
It's kind of scary, honestly, how well this seems to work. If they're made to believe that they have some agency, humans will often cooperate with their own subjugation. Worse yet, they might even feel supportive of that subjugation and lose sight of what forced them into it in the first place. I suppose it boils down to this. It's a lot easier to pretend you're free than to truly acknowledge that you aren't. That's why Kay insisted that he was in a free country. It's why the player is led to believe that they are making a choice. The man in the suit knows that people want to see themselves as free, and he knows that there is no easier way to trap them.
The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers!
You've probably heard that line before. It's one of the most famous from Shakespeare's Henry VI. And I think there's a good reason it's still familiar hundreds of years later. A complex civilization requires bureaucracy. I don't think there's any getting around that. No one person is going to understand how everything works. The government, the medical system, infrastructure, one of humanity's great strengths is their ability to specialize into certain areas and rely on each other for the rest. You don't need to know how to do heart surgery. You've got people for that. That's what complex systems are good at. But there's a risk in that. The risk that it will grow so large and influential, it begins developing and acting on its own interests. The risk that, once you've grown to rely on it, the system will take advantage of your reliance. The risk that one day the system will grow so detached from its original purpose that it will turn the people it was meant to serve, to borrow another term from Henry VI, into parchment. I don't think anything I'm saying is news to you, really. On some level, I think you're aware of this. I think it's why we're having this conversation. It's why one of your most enduring of all villains is a man in a suit. Where many other villains represent the danger of unchecked chaos, the man in the suit represents the danger of unchecked order. He personifies the moment your desire for safety grows so large that you're no longer safe from it. A villainous bureaucrat is an undeniably intimidating character. Despite just being a man in a suit, we know he's the avatar of something unseen and incomprehensible, which can also make him an intimidating character to write. These kinds of villains don't exist in a vacuum. They're dependent on the systems they represent. Laws, politics, money, social rules, all the things people can barely understand yet accept to be true. If you're creating a villain this complicated, this loaded with symbolism, chances are you're going to have to write an equally complicated world for them to inhabit. What sort of culture would enable your villain? What established rules do they use to their advantage? And since they're so deeply embedded in the system, how could your hero attempt to challenge them, if at all? Those questions go beyond character writing. They're about world building, which can be really hard. There's a lot to consider when you're making your own societies and political systems. In my own personal projects, I've honestly gotten pretty sick of juggling mountains of post-it notes and sprawling Word documents. So, I stopped using those things, and I switched to something else. Look at this. This is an interactive map. You can just make one of these and turn your whole world into a map that other people can come explore. And here's a dynamic timeline where you can plot out the events of your world and your characters' lives. You can build articles and link them together like a wiki. You can build an entire RPG campaign set in your world and run it with a digital GM screen. There's even a whiteboard feature that you can use for visualizing your ideas before you build them out. All of this, in case you don't recognize it already, is part of World Anvil, the single best app for building worlds. It really takes something incredibly daunting and turns it easy, fun even. Oh, and when you're ready, the site also makes it really easy to share your creations with anyone you want to as well. Your friends, peers, the general public, even paying customers. And if you don't want to share it at all, set your world to private and not even the site's creators will get to see it. Your ideas are totally safe here. So, if you're like me and you have an idea in your head you love but just can't figure out how to realize, this is your call to stop waiting, because the tools are right here in front of you. You can use World Anvil for free, but if you want to get really into it and unlock all the features, just visit worldanvil.com/TaleFoundry, use code TaleFoundry at checkout, and you'll get a whopping 51% off any premium subscription. Links in the description. It's hard to describe how good it feels for world building to just be fun. I hope you'll give this a try and see for yourself. I can't wait to hear about what you create with it. Feel free to leave links to your own projects down in the comments.